So I am honored to be here today as moderator, speaking with these wonderful individuals and hopefully, teaching, learning, exploring. Please don't be shy. Send your questions in. If they're good, we'll ask them. If they're not good, we'll probably ask them anyway, but there is no such thing as a bad question. So with that, we're gonna go in order here. Craig, please introduce yourself and let everyone know what you do.
All right, thanks, Laura. Craig Ritter, I'm the CEO of Ritter Insurance Marketing. I've been in the business since 1997. Just started out with me and my dad, and now we have 300 employees around the country, most of which are in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So fellow East Coaster, I say what I do is serve agents, my employees, and the insurance companies that we work for. So.
Great. I'm very loud.
Coming in hot.
I guess I don't really even need a microphone. I'm Susan Plumer. I am the Chief Growth Officer for ConnectureDRX. I'm very excited to be on the panel with some of our customers and great industry leaders, and I'm very happy to connect with the audience today. So for those of you who don't know Connecture is the leader in technology for quoting, shopping, and enrollment. We have over 200 customers that make up health plans, FMOs, mid-size agencies, and really anyone who is selling Medicare can use our platform for direct-to-consumer, call center, and for the broker channel. And our solutions include APIs as well as hosted SaaS solutions.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Jacobson. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Fair Street. So we're a startup. We build software for independent Medicare agents, and we also operate as an upline. So agents that work with us get that software for free. And fun fact, we actually integrate with Connecture, so it's fun to be on this panel with Susan.
Hey guys, my name is Niji. I'm the co-founder and CEO of AgentsInc. AgentsInc is a producer management compliance platform for carriers, agencies, wholesalers, MGAs, MGUs, FMOs, IMOs, all the acronyms, basically, across every line of business. But Medicare is a sweet spot for us given the seasonality. So at the end of the day, we connect distributors with products to sell. So distributors with carriers or wholesalers as a software platform.
Yeah, that's awesome. And from some of the words being used, you'll hear that connection is a big piece of it. And how do we use technology? How do we use innovation to connect? And it could be done in a variety of ways. Some people are excited about AI and the multiple uses. Some people are a little nervous about it. And I think there's camps for both, and for good reason. So the goal of innovation, and a lot of what we hear, is people use it for different reasons, different things. You can use innovation to connect with new people, new products, new services, new businesses. You can also use it to advance things that you're working on and moving forward. So, it might be improvements in care, service, relationship management. You may use it to reduce cost. You could even, increase your performance with it. Quality measurement, data analytics. If there's any number junkies in the audience, we know that if we can measure it and track it, it's usually a good thing. If we don't like what those numbers say, we either make changes or we pretend we never read them. So on the theme of innovation itself and technology specifically, Niji, I'll start with you. How do you see technology driving change for agents? And more importantly, why should they care?
Yeah, great question. So, I think a lot of people have made interesting predictions of the future many times here. But one of the biggest, value adds that technology really has at the end of the day is connecting the industry. And what ends up happening is carriers can evolve, kind of really large kind of enterprise agencies can evolve. There's a lot of technologies that's between, but without the tech actually talking to each other in a very real way, the agents end up paying the price at the end of the day. They are the manual Turk that is, figuring out how to accommodate their agency's process with their carrier's process, and then ultimately the customer. So they end up bearing the brunt in a lot of ways. So really, I see the future of technology as a way to make agents' lives easier at the end of the day. They're going to be managing much larger books of business with fewer people as the average age of agents today is around 62. So we're going to see a pretty big sea change in demographics as these older brokers reach retirement age, and the pendulum's going to swing the other direction, where the average broker is going to be much younger and not just demands better technology, better experience, but they're going to require it because they're going to have to do a lot more with less.
I see nodding. Sarah, do you have anything to add there?
Sure. I mean, just adding on to that, we think a lot about how do we allow agents to be more human with their clients. So I think, when we talk about technology, you might think about, how do we replace the agent? How do we make sure that, clients are not talking with a human and instead enrolling without talking to an agent? And personally, I don't believe that will be the case for the majority of older adults as they're enrolling in Medicare. So the way, I think similar to you, the way that we think about technology is how do we allow the agent to spend more of their time with clients and less of their time on the administrative work and being the mechanical Turk? I mean, the number of times I've asked agents, how long do you think you spend copying and pasting data every single day? It's hours. And that's because none of these systems talk to each other. And so I think the role of technology is really to enable the agent to be more human, to spend more time with clients and less on the back office.
Yeah, and I guess I would add, I mean, this industry is screaming for more personalization, right? I mean, that's personalized member journey. The agents want to have a more personalized experience with their consumers, and I feel like I'm really loud. So, and the consumers really deserve a way to enroll in their Medicare plan without just without doing it on a computerized form, right? So being able to have the technology give the agents a more personalized experience. So I'll just give you an example. Last year, we rolled out personalized videos as part of the shopping and quoting experience for consumers. Also, a lot of consumers just, they don't want to read everything, right? You don't want to send it over email and they have to read their summary of benefits and they have to read all the supplemental benefits. If you could have a way to personalize that and talk to the actual consumer saying, hey, Sarah, based on your health status and how many drugs you're taking and this pharmacy that you use, and that makes it more personalized and you're talking to the person. We had actually a 27% conversion rate for agents in their enrollments for anyone who clicked on that video, which is, I think, just a testament to how important personalization is.
I think about technology in a number of different dimensions. I think about communication, and in particular, ChatGPT has some really interesting capabilities within the realm of communication. Right now, it's just kind of text only, but you can kind of see the day where it's going to become a person's voice. I think last week I watched a YouTube video of Joe Rogan interviewing Donald Trump, and I think my jaw fell on the ground just to hear. And ChatGPT generated all the questions, all the answers. It was in the voices of the characters. It had the video of them. So I mean, you think of that kind of technology. I think someone mentioned before every video, it's going to have to disclaim this includes real people, or this is all AI generated. So I think one of the challenges in the future might be just determining what's real and what's not real. I think we have that problem already, but so I mean, communication, yeah, I think a little bit. So communication being one. Second dimension I think about is process dimension. So kind of workflow engineering, whether that's enrollment or whether that's collecting data, managing data, manipulating data. All those aspects. And then I think about being able to manipulate time and space through different technology. So used to be we'd get in our cars and drive from appointment to appointment. We would have to fill out a paper enrollment and make a photocopy and put it in a file, and all that extended the amount of space between us and our clients, and also the amount of time it would take us to work those processes. So, how do we use technology to compress time and space is kind of another way I think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think specific to ChatGPT, I mean, listen, we're in the business to make very, very complex decisions easier for seniors, and ChatGPT for seniors right now, I don't, we sit in the middle of compliance, and I think everyone in the room has heard of CMS and some of the new regulations that they're bringing, and there was a 374-page ruling that just came out. So like for us, I think ChatGPT offers an amazing opportunity, especially for agents. I don't think that we would tackle first the consumer, right? Let's let it fly. Let's let it get perfected first. But I think for agents, like onboarding agents, agent education, content for agents, I think it'll be a very important recruiting tool. Like now that the average agent is 72 years old, you're trying to get younger agents on board there. And I definitely, and my product people will probably kill me for saying this, but I definitely think in the not too distant future for agents, there will be, on our platform saying, click here for ChatGPT, and in terms of, product, speed to market, getting content on the platform quicker, customer support, agent training, I think that's where it really opens up a lot of doors.
Can I jump in?
Absolutely.
So I think, I think one thing that we kind of tend to skip over in the conversations like with ChatGPT and AI generally is the ethics of AI. And so we like to talk a lot about the capabilities, and that seems to be, I think, the general direction that I think there's been so many advances recently that the capabilities of ChatGPT are surprising, shocking, and we don't even really know how it's creating these new capabilities within its system. But there's also a whole nother area of AI ethics, and the alignment problem. How do you align AI to the human species in the proper way? So I think there's a little bit of a race between the alignment, the ethics, and also the capabilities. And right now, I think the capabilities are blowing through, kind of blown way ahead. I know there's been talk about pausing some of the development of AI programs. I mean, I'm, for one, would sign on. I'm no expert on that, but based on the research, I feel it's as a species, we probably need to pause for a little bit and figure out the ethics and the alignment problem before we race ahead with all the capabilities. But the capabilities are incredible. So it's hard to say like what it's going to be in 5 years or 10 years, but it's going to change everything about what we do. Is kind of my general opinion. We can dig in more, but I just did want to put like a pin in there to say that we are not talking about ethics, and I think that should be the first. Conversation, not the second. But
so I have a quick one on ethics. So I actually asked ChatGPT about the ethics of using technology and AI within this context and use case. And so ChatGPT says, one of the main ethical concerns with using technology in Medicare sales is the potential to compromise privacy and autonomy of potential beneficiaries. Technology can collect and analyze personal data, potentially leading to manipulation and discriminatory practices. It's important to ensure that the use of technology is transparent and equitable without creating the disparities in access to healthcare. Really well put.
Yeah.
ChatGPT is good.
Yeah, it's pretty deep. I was listening to a podcast this morning with the founder of ChatGPT and the numerous other programs that he's created and written. And it was fascinating because the question was asked, about his thoughts on the pause. And the individual interviewing him, his personal opinion was the fact that until these systems can show transparency for not necessarily the outcome of the answer, but how they got to said outcome, and we as humans can understand the thought process, if you will, to that answer, then it should be paused, right? So when we Google something, or if you have your favorite search engine, answers come up. And depending on the source, we either lean in and we say, yes, I trust this source, this answer is good, and maybe we don't dig deeper. Or possibly if Reddit comes up, you might want to click around a little bit more. But it was an interesting point in that until humans understand how these, I'll say, decisions or outputs are created, who are we to potentially trust or make action based on these things? So it's interesting when it comes up that, it's protection, it's transparency, it's almost an interesting kerfuffle because it could advance us, it could educate. And Susan, a lot of what I heard you saying was the excitement around education, I think, for consumers and education for agents and making sure that people understand what technologies are out there or solutions are out there is a really important piece of this equation. But, Craig, you sit in this every day. What are your thoughts? Like, number one, are you using this in business, any form of AI? And number two, are you still faxing? Just kidding.
I think I retired my fax machine a while ago.
Proud of you.
No, I spent a good bit of time with ChatGPT. Probably, I wish, I'd like to spend more time with it, probably in the tens of hours, but not, I'd like to probably spend hundreds of hours with it, but there's only so many things you can do. Some of the capabilities and some of the things that I'm using it for right now is really on the creative side. So I think one of the more difficult things about communication sometimes is just getting started. So using it as, ask it a question, and then you can prompt it in different directions to be able to add more humor or in a certain voice. I mean, there's so many things so many ways that you can manipulate those answers once they come in. I also feed it different articles and ask it to summarize for me, which I think is pretty funny because I do a lot of reading. Right now, I'm just kind of reading the article anyway, but just kind of for fun, I like to put it in there and ask it to kick that out. Some of the areas I think it has incredible capabilities are in writing software and coding. I heard, so I'm kind of passing this on, but that ChatGPT took a test. So if you want to become an employee of Google or you want to become an employee maybe of Facebook, you can do an online test. And ChatGPT scored higher than 100% of all the test takers. So that's a pretty good score. And you had 2 hours to complete the coding assignments within that online test. And ChatGPT completed them in 2 minutes and 43 seconds.
Wow.
And most of that time was the time it took the human to copy and paste the question into ChatGPT. So it would have been probably even faster. So, how we use it from being able to assist our coders. I mean, I think the implications for, how it's going to affect healthcare generally, not just insurance, but healthcare with physicians, with development of new medications and proteins and all. I mean, that's just amazing direction as well. Again, jumping over all the ethical concerns which I have, which are very deep, so everyone knows. But just kind of thinking from a capability perspective, if you can solve certain things, the capabilities are amazing. And I think from an intermediate level, I did go in and I asked it a bunch of questions about insurance, of course, and it doesn't do any recommending right now. And it can't really tell you about a plan. So I didn't. So it's not a good salesperson. It does a lot of what I call
Good
on
for
the other
you,
hand.
right?
Yeah, good. It's
Good
good to
for
hear.
everyone in this room.
Yeah, I thought it was a terrible salesperson. A lot of stuff this, and this, but on the other hand, this, and this, and a lot of cases no, I just want to know just tell me what product I should buy. Don't tell me, well, this is a good product, but this is also a good product, and this is a great, this is another good product. So at this point, and it doesn't have the data on, I was trying to ask it specific questions about particular plans. It doesn't have any data on that fed into it, so that wasn't in its training set. But I think ultimately, eventually it will be, I would assume. But I think acting as a co-pilot, so there's a lot of conversation about these chatbots acting as co-pilots for, whether it's an attorney or a physician, and I think for sales agents, it could be interesting to think about how it could act as an assistant or a co-pilot for that, for recommending plans or all kinds of different things. But I'll pause there.
No, it's great. I was actually going to ask you a follow-up, and really it's for everyone up here. Double tapping into how can it be a co-pilot? I think we probably have some individuals in the room who want to know more. Like, how can I use this? And we talked about in the creative sense, personally speaking, we have a number of podcasts that we run, and I'll use it to summarize. I'll use it to prep questions for me. I'll use it to kick out one-pagers that we can turn into customizable documents for agents as leave-behinds. We're using it in a lot of interesting ways. But how else can agents potentially use this, or how have you seen it?
I could see it interacting directly with the beneficiaries from a data collection perspective. So maybe just like having a conversation, and I'm not sure what format that would take, but just asking like, what drugs are you on? What doctors are you seeing? What are some of your preferences? So from just one element could be just data collection. So it wouldn't actually be making recommendations, but it could be maybe collecting your scopes of appointment. It could be collecting the drugs that your clients are taking. It may be asking them questions in that regard. I know there's like privacy concerns and things, but that would be one element.
I'll give a few other examples of ways that we're using it internally. So ChatGPT is an amazing resource for marketing as an agency. So like Nay saw, we also have a podcast called the Medicare Agent Podcast. I do the recording. I put the RSS feed, so the recording, into ChatGPT, and it creates a summary, a blog post, show notes, and highlight reels.
And how many hours does that save you?
Countless. And what's really amazing is it doesn't get to 100%. It's not like I can just hit publish. I do read it, and sometimes there's some little quirky pieces that I'll edit out, but it gets it to 90%, and that's the hardest part. The second thing that I've been playing around with is ChatGPT as a way to digest really complex documents. So I fed ChatGPT the CMS marketing guidelines.
Yeah.
Yes. And what's really interesting is that there are tools out there that allow you to ask questions using ChatGPT, but it will only answer based on what is in a PDF. So it's getting around that question of, will ChatGPT make up answers? And even on top of that, it will link you to the specific paragraph. So I think there's some really interesting use cases feeding in complex documents from CMS, summary of plan benefits, that agents or our own staff internally can use to query and get really fast answers to.
Right.
Yeah, on the agency side, we haven't really figured out a great way to integrate across the company. We use it for DevOps today, to developer operations, basically folks that help our engineers just be more efficient overall. But I think the way at least I think about ChatGPT is it doesn't replace a human. It can augment a human in a tremendous way, in ways that we can't even imagine right now. ChatGPT can probably write most of the content that we put out on the marketing side. I hope there's no copywriters from our companies. But I don't think it'll replace them. It'll make them 10, 20, 30 times as productive. Instead of being able to publish 10 long form pieces of content every week, they can do 100 or even more than that, and really tailor what are the subjects that we're trying to hit, have ChatGPT do the first draft, and then they will come in over the top and kind of clean everything up. Think about that use case across everything we do as a business, writing memos, building decks, things like that. For internal operations, it could save a ton of time. And really, it's built for doing the things that humans don't want to do, things that are repetitive, things that are manual, things that can be automated. And that's what I'm most excited about.
Susan, so there's a lot of avenues we could go down here, but something that we talked about in the prep call was interesting, using technology and essentially freeing time to use it in different ways. So we talked about trusted relationships and the value of these relationships. And when we were saying, or Craig had mentioned that ChatGPT is not a good salesperson, and I think we heard about 14 of you sigh in relief.
I said not yet.
Not yet, not yet.
No,
So your time is coming. We talked a little bit about what relationships mean. So, a specific question to you: how does your trusted relationships with the carriers in the market help influence or help agent distribution?
Yeah, so I think that Connecture really sits in a very unique position, having, 60 plus health plan partners of ours and having well over 200,000 agents that use our technology today. So giving the feedback, like health plans are starving for feedback. We heard this morning from Steve Warner at UHC, right? He wants to know what agents are thinking. What could they be doing better? How could they be making sure that, agents are getting what they need from the carriers? So we, sitting in this position, are really able to provide that feedback, right? Because we go, I was at Aetna last week, then I was at United, and then we go and we're meeting with these, our partners, and we're providing that feedback. One of the other things that we do that I'm super proud of is we have, I would call it like an electrifying customer conference every year. And so we started this customer conference just with our multi-carrier partners and our agencies and our agents. And then this year, we invited our health plan partners, our value-based care partners, our ancillary partners, and our agency partners, and they were all in the same room. And the amount of collaboration, the ideas, the feedback that they're sharing, that's really, they need each other, right? The health plans count on you as agents for their distribution. If people hear me talk, I talk about us as being the matchmakers of Medicare, right? So we connect the carriers with the agents and the agents with the plans and carriers that they sell. And then this year, we're adding to that ecosystem and bringing in the providers. So I think it's just it's very important to be able to share that amongst all three of those entities.
If I could put a little footnote on my comment. So I think ChatGPT as a salesperson down the road, I'm talking years down the road, so not thinking right away, but technology surprises you. And just thinking about the sales process, like what we do, I think the question of trust is a big element. So, I just think for myself personally, so it's like N of one. Would I trust a machine learning to recommend a plan for me? I don't think so. Maybe I would trust it to recommend like a restaurant or the right plane to take or what, helping me with travel, things like that. But that level of trust, I think, and back to the point of like knowing what's real and what's fake and understanding that these language models sometimes hallucinate and come up with, weird answers like out of the blue and just make stuff up. Like in one case, it made up, it listed out like 5 authors and books that they had written, which none of them had written any of those books. But, if you ask it a question, it's going to give you an answer. And if it seems like if it doesn't know the answer, it's going to make something up. And I think the other component about the sales process is like, how do you really know what's the best plan for a Medicare beneficiary? I think, you can look back, like if you can predict the future, that's a good thing. You could put somebody in the right plan that way. But a lot of it is how people feel about their plan. They're almost like, it's not, ones and zeros or dollars and cents, but it's like, do they feel comfortable with their agent? Do they like the brand? Do they like the company? Do they like what benefits? Because you can't really project, how someone's going to use their policy like over the course of a year. So, weird thing is that, it's just like your emotional attachment to your health insurance plan is, maybe a component that's difficult to model with even with a super intelligence.
Well, your emotional attachment to your agent is super important, right? And so technology helps to support that. And one of the reasons that a consumer would have that emotional attachment to their agent is because they got them in the right fit plan, right? And they didn't lead them down a path, right? So, I mean, having like the data accuracy is so important for agents, right? I mean, the drug information, the plan information, the provider information. I mean, the last thing they want to do is like, pick this plan and then a month later, they're telling their consumer, like, this drug is covered in this pharmacy and it's going to be this cost. And what they don't want to happen is a month later that consumer is calling them and saying, I'm at the pharmacy and I just picked up my, prescription and it wasn't covered. And the health plans don't want that either because that's just going to impact their star ratings. And so right now, I mean, like ChatGPT is so far away from that, and would really get in the way of that emotional attachment, I think, between the consumer and that trust factor with the agent.
I want to carry on with this emotional theme, right? Because we talked about the connection between the humans and the technology and how it's an interesting vibe. I want to keep going right down the line. Sarah, where does emotion play in the work that you do and what you're trying to solve?
It's an interesting question. I think a few different ways that it comes to play. I mean, the whole journey to starting Fair Street was an emotional one, actually. When we started the company, really our mission was not necessarily to build an FMO, but rather to solve a real problem. We, in starting the company, actually interviewed 100 people turning 65 and just asked them what was difficult about this process. And the thing that kept coming up over and over and over again was when someone got to work with a trusted, local, independent agent who they had an emotional connection with, they got better healthcare. And they felt like they could trust the answers that they were getting. And the opposite was also true. So when we started Fair Street, it was coming from that emotional place of we care deeply about healthcare for older adults. The way that we think we can have that impact is if we empower local, independent agents to enable them to have that connection and perform those services for their clients. So I think the whole reason for being at Fair Street stemmed from that emotional connection. The second piece is when we think about building product, is we do so in a way that really serves to strengthen the bond between the beneficiary and the agent. So we've interviewed over 300 Medicare agents in building our product, and we really asked them, what are the parts of the enrollment journey that you care deeply about, the places where you feel you add the most value, that you want to be spending your time? So those are places like educating someone turning 65 about Medicare, or during open enrollment, having those one-on-one meetings. And then we asked the question, where do you not want to be spending your time? Where would you prefer that technology play a role? And these were things like, I don't want to be copying and pasting data. I don't want to spend all my time reading, deciphering photos of prescription bottles that I'm getting from my clients and trying to figure out the dosages. So there are lots of elements that come into play that technology can play a super powerful role in so that we can actually deepen the connection between the client and the agent. And that's, I think, where the future of this industry is heading.
I'm going to keep going right down the line with you. The same question, where does emotion play in your business?
I would say deeply in a lot of ways. So a little bit on my background. I joined a company called Zenefits years back. When you guys still know the name, it probably gives you shivers. So Zenefits got into a ton of trouble for regulatory issues around producer licensing, and we basically entered the market poking everyone in the eye in a way. And it was, we were basically trying to spin the message that technology was going to replace brokers. And I joined the company to lead their sales strategy and operations team. I was there for 4 or so years, and then stumbled on this problem of producer management and compliance, ended up starting agency as a result. But we ran into a ton of emotion for the broker population every time we were out to out in market and in events, and the kind of fear of being replaced by a robot is a very real thing that I think a lot of folks think about. And as you can see ChatGPT do these amazing things. It's never going to replace the broker. Brokers aren't going anywhere anytime soon. They're a critical piece of the entire puzzle when it comes to distribution, when it comes to actually having a trusted advisor you can turn to when usually on like the worst day of your life or a day where you have a big loss that you have to figure out how to cover. And that the brokers as humans are just they're not going anywhere anytime soon, but they can, become. There was one presentation years ago, was the Iron Man broker. I was told I was going to get sued for copyright infringement, so I didn't include the graphic anywhere. But the future of the insurance broker is going to be this Iron Man broker that is, mostly human, but part machine to help do the heavy lifting and really the things that they don't want to do on a manual, repetitive basis.
Yeah, we call them super agents at Fair Street. And whenever we encounter a super agent, defined as someone with a really huge book of business that they're able to manage by themselves using technology, I always think of that as the future, where they have a deeply personal relationship with their clients, but on the back end, there's automations, there's CRMs, there are quoting engines, there's all sorts of stuff happening.
Yeah, I think a lot of Medicare beneficiaries do research on the internet, and they use a lot of this technology. I could see ChatGPT being similar to that, but they want to talk to a person and say, like, does this make sense? Because like, how are they really going to truly know? So to talk to somebody that's a professional and has authority within that subject matter I think means a lot to the seniors.
Yeah, it's interesting. So we've covered a lot of bases, and I haven't seen anyone send in a question yet. So I'm thinking it's a missed opportunity. So please send in your questions. We have plenty of time left. But I want to dive a little bit deeper. We talked about technology. We talked about AI. We talked about ChatGPT. We talked about how we use it, how we could use it, how it may or may not replace humans or other pieces of technology. But let's talk about how we can make this accessible, right? I mean, some people hear the term and they don't even know what it means. Where do I start? What do I do? And then there's other individuals who are in there trying to, write their own code and solve problems. Niji, I'll start with you. The industry. How can we ensure that technological innovation, how do we make it accessible to all agents, regardless of their level of expertise or resources? We heard, the average age of an agent is 60 plus. So how do we make things accessible to everyone, no matter where they are in their technology journey?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first off, I think I just want to acknowledge the fact that we're talking about ChatGPT and AI and machine learning, and the fax machine is still part of a lot of core day-to-day
I want to see a raise of hands right now.
operations.
Who's still using the fax machine? Oh, I see a few hands. All right, let's keep going. Honesty is key here.
Or paper enrollment,
getting there.
paper enrollments.
So I think we have a long way to go overall, but sorry, can you repeat the question one more time? I get too excited about the fax machine.
I don't blame you. Just the industry. How can we make sure that it's accessible to every agent, every person, no matter where they are in their technology journey?
Yeah, so this is a big issue that we had to overcome when we started Agent Sync, is to make sure that we met customers where they are. When you're talking to a cutting edge insurtech like maybe Lemonade, they have a core set of skills and just an understanding of how this stuff works, or at least a guess of how it works in a much different way. And their demands are just different. They want everything to be automated and everything to have as much technology at front and center. And I'm not going to name a customer for this one, but there are a ton of customers who don't want to automate a lot of their processes away. They want to make sure they have, let's say, licenses and appointment credentials in front of them to be able to make decisions. They don't want the decision making to be automated. So I'd say at the end of the day, it's figuring out how we can meet folks where they are without completely disrupting the process, but giving them the tools and really the runway to automate pieces that they do want, and kind of show them the art of the possible, but be able to meet them where they are today. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges in this space, is the fragmented nature of the industry. I mean, we have thousands of carriers, a couple thousand wholesalers, MGAs, MGUs. We have about 200,000 agencies, just over 1 million brokers total. And there isn't a single steel thread that connects any of those folks together in a real way today. So I think one of the challenges that we all face, actually sitting here and everyone in this room, is how do you build a process or a tech stack that works for everyone, that works for somebody that is reaching retirement age and works just as well for someone who recently graduated is looking for a job.
Right. I mean, I think agents, came into the Medicare business to help seniors. They didn't really want to memorize 1,000 logins and passwords and user IDs, right? So solving that problem and having one place for the agent to go, right, and have all the things that they need in one place. I mean, that's what we're all trying to solve for, right? Having all their plans, having all their providers, having all their drugs, having all the data, having the HRAs, having every possible thing that they need to help make the right decision, and having them not have to leave and go to that carrier's portal or to go over to that because they don't have that plan on there. So, I mean, that's something that as a technology vendor in this space, I mean, it is literally, our mission to have every single plan on this platform, from a Medicare Advantage to a Part D to a Med Sup, to all the ancillary carriers, right? So that an agent never has to leave and they can spend the time doing what they want. And as customers, you will want that, and so we'll be relentless in making sure that this mission comes true for the agents, right? So that's the first thing that we have to do is get everything in one place.
I think a lot of it is individualization. It's painfully individualized, like one by one. I feel like sometimes, like you're throwing them over the fence, agents one by one. So it's like the personalization, the customization, education. It's difficult to kind of throw a whole blanket thing out there and expect agents to just kind of pick it up on their own. It really takes a lot more effort than that. So that's kind of how I would say accessibility has really got to be drilled down to kind of to the agent level.
And the last thing I'd add is I think about accessibility as solving the problem in order. So for example, if I'm speaking to an agent that is on pen and paper, I'm not going to tell them, hey, have you heard of ChatGPT? I'm talking to them about a CRM and how they can run their business more efficiently if they can take their paper files and digitize them. So that would be kind of the first problem to solve. And then there are problems like, dealing with all sorts of logins to carrier portals. And if the solution there requires AI, great. But sometimes not all of these problems require that as a solution. And so I think about what are the most burning problems that our agents face and considering ChatGPT in the solution set, but it's often not the answer. If I'm speaking to someone that has like 2,000 clients and they have everything automated and they're trying to figure out how to, optimize even further, then there's a conversation and opportunity to include ChatGPT. And our philosophy around product development is it shouldn't feel hard. Like it shouldn't feel like you need a computer science degree to utilize these new technologies. They should be accessible because there's simple and elegant product design.
Yeah, and I also just think like we're sitting up here talking to the audience about what we think, and think one of the most important things is to hear what you think, right? So as agents in this market, I mean, and I love how you do your surveys and you talk to brokers. We do the same thing. We have a consumer survey that we do every year. We survey, thousands and thousands of consumers from, ages of 62 well past, Medicare age, so we can understand their shopping and their buying behaviors, and over 65, their switching behaviors, so that we meet with our brokers and we meet with our customers to get their feedback. And that is literally, how our product roadmap is built from you all and from our customers. So it's really nice to hear, from us and what we think. But I mean, you as agents, we need to know, like, is this going to be something that is going to make you jump ship and leave the platform, right? Because we want technology to help. It should only be there to assist you. And so I think really making sure, as this is such a complex world anyway, and these decisions are so complicated, and there's so many guidelines and protection that are in place for the consumers, that we just can't make that leap until we are doing a lot more and getting a lot more feedback from our end users.
Yeah, and I just want to recognize too, there are pieces of this conversation that are extremely important. They have a lot of depth, a lot of breadth. And we haven't touched them today. So I'm sure someone might be thinking, the ethical concerns. What are the compliance concerns? What does this look like? We haven't touched those. And I'm sure some of you have noticed, but the conversation is so large and it's ever evolving. It was slightly on purpose. And the other one too, there was a question that came in, and thank you for those of you who are sending questions in. There's questions on here about technology being used to mitigate bias and discrimination versus reinforce implicit bias that may be present. And that is a very, very important piece of this conversation. We are unfortunately not going to dive too much deeper because my clock is telling me we have 3 minutes and 48 seconds. But I wanted to recognize that that is very important, and it's a huge piece of this puzzle that we haven't touched on, but we do respect and recognize that. And with our 3 minutes, I'm going to dive into this fun question here. And we're talking about average age of current agents. So looking ahead in 5 years, the average age of the current agent, those individuals may or may not have chosen to retire. And move on. So what do you think? Predictions. Let's play the prediction game, right? If we all had those predictions. Do you think, message from the audience, the next generation of individuals, Gen Xers, for example, will value personal service and human verification as much as boomers?
I just read that question and I was like, it's a really, really good question, right? Because the boomers are all about personalization and the warm and fuzzy part of, and they got into this business. I'm just going to use like Craig's dad is an agent, and he has 2,000, customers still, and he's 78 years old, and he's not leaving because he loves to talk to his customers. So I am personally a little bit worried about that because, the Gen Xers, they aren't as warm and fuzzy. They don't want to come into the office. They want to stay home. COVID hasn't really helped in that regard, and has kind of helped separate us more than bring us together. But I have faith in people that have chosen to be in this industry. Right? There is a mission behind everyone who does what they do, especially those of you who are directly working with consumers and helping them really get the care they deserve. So I'm going to just go with the leap of faith. But I also do think that they will be more interested in the technology, helping them on the back end and augmenting them. They're like, we talked about recruiting, right? When you start going out and recruiting new agents, what's the first thing that they're going to ask you is, what's your technology and what can it do for me?
I'd say slightly less than boomers, but as a Gen Xer, we're cynical and we're questioning. So I think I don't think there'll be that kind of. I worry more probably about Gen Z, my kids. Like, I think they trust they trust answers on YouTube more than they trust answers that I give them. So that might just be a failing on my part. I don't know. But like I told my daughter how to plant a plant or whatever, how to grow a plant, and then she said, "Oh, that's great." And then she went on YouTube and looked it up. So,
I think one thing that will not change, though, is I come back to this saying that people buy from people. And I think that is true no matter what generation you come from. People buy from people. How that works, though, may be different. So, for example, let's say you build up your brand as an agent on YouTube, right? People will find that channel and have a personal connection to you, and that might be the reason why they work with you. So I think the human element is not going away, but how people interact. And for example, as a millennial, I, for example, bought our benefits for our company through one of these technology services, and I regret it. I have now switched to an old school group benefits broker because I wanted to have a human in my corner. And so I think this idea of people buy from people is true no matter what age someone is.
We have
6 seconds.
It's okay.
6 seconds left. I'll be fine. I think the biggest thing is really choice at the end of the day, presenting the consumer or the broker partner with the choice to choose their own adventure. I think having the option to talk to a human, but also having a really slick technology experience to get that transaction done if you want to. So for example, if I'm buying renter's insurance online, $16 a month, I can probably do that through an app. But if I'm buying a homeowner's insurance for my first house, which I just did a couple years ago, I kind of want to talk to a human. Actually, I demand that I talk to a human. I think that's going to be the biggest thing in the future is knowing when and how and having those choices presented to folks in the right place.
I think we want to yell at somebody if something goes wrong, right? You can't really yell at ChatGPT or
Can't yell at an app.
Well, with that, thank you all so very much. We are all going to be around for the rest of the conference, so please find us, speak with our lovely panelists, and thank you for being here today.